Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to Let's Learn the Electric Bass with Lyte. Today, we're going to talk about tempo, meter, and rhythm. Three things, one of which we've talked about a little bit before. And we're going to get right into it. No shenanigans, no review. Just going to get into tempo, meter, and rhythm. They're important words and occasionally hard to spell, but we're just going to talk about them so you can worry about spelling later. And for that one, I'm mostly meaning rhythm, because we have learned rhythm changes, so it's about time we officially learned what rhythm is all about instead of just listening to music. And essentially, when you boil it down, rhythm is how you divide up time when you're playing. Because not everything is perfectly equal and things do change, because you don't just hold that one note forever and ever. It goes somewhere. And how it changes is the rhythm. So if you play it perfectly even, that's one rhythm. Another rhythm. Okay, we could do another rhythm. Yeah, let's do this one. And now you go, okay, well, how many of these rhythms are there? Infinity. That's right. I'm a mathematician. I love infinity, even though it's a jerk. But there are infinitely many rhythms that you could do just on this one particular scale. Why? Because, well, any different way you divide it up is a different way to divide it up. And any tiny difference in how you do the divisions is another rhythm. Now, granted, you could say, light, there are finitely many of them because human precision, you can only get so much resolution. Well, we work in an analog system here. Yes, as a human, I might only be able to recreate a finite number of them, and I might classify certain ones as being the same, but there are infinitely many of them. And so we do work to classify them, to break them down into ones that are useful, and the difference between, is not significantly different from. It sounded pretty well the same, except for maybe a little bit of variation, but that variation is mathematically important, but not really musically important. They were both more or less equal. But any little wobble really is a different rhythm. Deep down, mathematically. But as a musician, if it's equal, it's equal. So we need names for these things. And there are names. There's actually two very prominent schools for what to call certain lengths of notes. But unfortunately, lengths of notes are all relative because these could be quarter notes. They could be eighth notes. They could be minims, quavers, semiquavers. You don't know. You can't know because you don't know the tempo. Without the tempo, you don't know the rhythm. Run into all sorts of troubles when you work with time, don't you? All you know is that they are all the same. So if this first one, going to here, is a quaver, they're all quavers. If they're all semibrevs, or like if one of them's a semibrev, they're all semibrevs. Great. Now I've thrown a lot of words that don't mean anything to you. And that's kind of the point. There are tons of words, but they'll make sense once we talk about tempo. So, Was that fast or slow? Well, that all depends on your sense of music, because if you're into death metal, is not fast. Not fast at all. I mean, even going is not particularly fast for death metal. But if you're into Gabriel Fauré, that's pretty darn quick. He likes to take his time. And so tempo is how fast you think it's going because of the context. So if I played that in a death metal context, you'd expect this to actually potentially be a death metal ballad, because, I mean, that's not fast at all. And so you think, well, the underlying tempo, if this were a death metal tune, would be just moving right along. And so anything at this tempo is probably, 2 units of time each, because it's going by so fast. So yeah, probably 2 units of time each. Whereas if you're playing some sort of Western European old-timey sweet thing, that might be half of a unit of time each. Do, 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 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, how you're counting those underlying things, so instead of it being 8, it's 16. There's 16 units of time there, whereas when we were thinking about it slow, there's only 4. And that's tempo. It's some underlying, non-existent feeling of how time is passing. And sometimes you can get a feel for what that tempo is from the music itself. From a scale, you don't get much. But if you hear a tune, do, 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 do. This is the imaginary tempo underneath of it. I'm not playing that, but it's there, deep down underneath. And so that's your tempo. Imaginary sense of time going by, regardless of what you're playing. Well, derived from what you're playing, really. And once you have that tempo, you can start talking about rhythm, because of how many of these imaginary clicks any particular note takes up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 3. So 1, 2, and 3. But it's not quite that. It's 1, 2, a 3. And so you get into all sorts of weird ways of dividing things up. So we'll get back to Fauré there later. But if you have that same tempo from our good friend Fauré there, and you just play along with that beat, In one school of thought, that is a quarter note that you're playing along with the beat, which seems a little weird. Why would you have a quarter note be your tempo? Well, because the most common grouping of time, often called common time, is 4/4, meaning you have 4 quarter notes. And I know you want to reduce that fraction down to 1, and well, that's kind of the point. That 4/4 is a whole measure. Whole. 1. And so if you have a whole note, it takes up all 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. That's a whole note. Now you can stretch it longer than a whole note and stretch across bars, but that's as big as we need right now. And then you can divide that however you want. Equally. Because we're mathematicians here, we like dividing things nice and equal. So you can cut it in half. Oops. A 1, 2, 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get half notes. They're half of a whole note. And then you take that in half again. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And you get quarter notes. And imagine what happens when you cut that in half again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Ooh, I need to get better at that scale. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and... So underneath you've still got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are whole notes, quarter notes, eighth. Yeah. Wholes, halves, quarters, and eighths. You can keep dividing down 16, 32, 64, but at this tempo, my goodness, that would be madness. I can barely do the eighth notes. Now that's one of the systems. The other system, it's less intuitive to me, but I'm not English. The English, in particular, and decent parts of continental Europe as well, have different names for it. Instead of quarter notes, you've got crotchets. And if you cut those in half, you've got quavers. So you get your crotchets, cut them in half, you get quavers. You cut those in half, you get semiquavers. And you can cut those down into demi-semiquavers and hemi-semi-demi-quaver. Or, I never remember the order of the hemi-semis and demis in those. Hemi-demi-semi-quaver? That sounds about right. All the way down. Keep cutting them in half and half and half and half. Okay, so we've got crotchets and quavers and semiquavers on down. What's up? Well, if you take your good old crotchet here, and you put two of them together, you get a minim. And then you go for our good old whole note, 4 beats long. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You get a semi-brev. Because they have one above that they use on occasion that is just a brev, and it's 8 beats long. Takes a long time to get through one of those. So there's a bunch of words that you're going to have to practice in your brain meets to get going fluently. But you'll also notice that we only worked with powers of 2. But that's not the only way you can divide it. You can divide things in 3s as well. But that's where it gets a little tricky, because we don't have third notes and fifth notes and seventh notes. We then have tuplets. And so you can have a triplet, you can have a quadruplet, but that's not really useful. Quintuplets, sextuplets, septuplets, nonuplets, triskaidecatuplets if you really want them. But what they do is they take the next smaller power of 2 and put that number in its space. So, for example, if you want a triplet, 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 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and triplet, 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 triplet. So you take the space of 2 and put 3 in that space. Now, if you want a quintuplet, you take the space of 4 and put 5 in it. So you would normally have 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and... Ooh. And then you put 5 in there, equally spaced. Now, anywhere above 5, you rarely ever need, and it's often just a whoosh of notes. But triplets are very important, so you need to get into the habit of being able to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So you keep that underlying tempo, but instead of dividing in half, you go into 3s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But sometimes those triplets are really what you want. And that's why there's more than just common time where it's 4, 4. You could also have 8, 8. And you're like, Lyte, come on. Why? Why 8, 8? Well, because 4, 4 tends to be divided 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you get that sort of stress to it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But that's not always what you want. Sometimes you want 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3 and. Oh, but that's still 8 eighth notes. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you could do it. And it's nice 4, 4 time. But what if you wanted still even, still the same underlying feel, like you've still got equally spaced, but instead you want, let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Ooh. That was a little problematic. So 4, 4. And then 8, 8. So you have 3, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That's sometimes something you're going to want. A little more common is 6, 8, where you're just doing a 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so you can group them in 3s and 2s. Generally, you don't go any higher than that because you would just split it up into smaller groups of 2s or 3s. So 6, 8, it's 2 groups of 3. But you could have 5, 8. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Or 7/8. Yeah, that doesn't feel very good in this particular scale, but it would be basically 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I needed to practice that one more. Because there is an example of that you can go and listen to right now. It's by Radiohead. It's called 5/4. You'd think the tune would be in 5/4, where you've got 5 quarter notes. 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and then back to 1. But it's not. It's not in 4/4 either. It starts off making it sound like it's in 7/8. But then once everybody else comes in, it goes into either 7/4 or a mix of 4/4 and 3/4, but it's not what they originally made you think it was. But it uses this idea of a meter grouping 3s and 2s to make you a little bit wobbly and uncertain of where things actually are. But any rhythm that you want to play is made up of these sorts of rhythms. Now, there are variations, because sometimes, like in 4A, you've got that 1, 2. So you end up on 3 right up here. 1, 2, 3. So how do you get this guy so close to 3? Well, you take this guy. So he's a quarter note, but he's got a little more. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and. So it's even after the end of 2. Oh, I haven't taught you that yet. We'll cover that in just a second. But you've got 1, 2. So by the time it gets to 2, it's already at least a quarter. By the time it gets to 2 and, you've got a quarter note and an eighth note's worth of length there. So what we do is we add a dot to the quarter note. So a dotted quarter note is a quarter note and a half. So if we had just the dotted quarter note, we'd have 1, 2, and 3, which is still not long enough, but it's almost there. So what we do is we add another dot. So that dot takes half the length of the dot and adds it on to the end. So you have a quarter note plus an eighth note plus a 16th note. So 1, 2E, and a 1, or 1, 2E, and a 3. Dotted, doubly dotted quarter note, followed by a 16th note into beat 3. So when you're trying to figure out what these rhythms are, it helps to have some nomenclature for the parts of the beat. And the way I was taught involves 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, such that you can say it very quickly, no matter how fast the tempo is, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And that breaks it down into the 16th note subdivisions, such that you can line up where it even lands. And so that was what I was doing in the 1, 2 E and a, 3. We're on that 3. Now, triplets don't land in that, so you need a different mnemonic. Some people use triplet. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3. Some people go triplet, 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 which I don't like because you lose track of the numbers. Some people go 1 lolly, 2 lolly. I was taught 1 lolly, 2 lolly. So long as you have a way of vocalizing it, you can communicate it both with yourself and with other musicians. So it's more important to be consistent than to be accurate. Because even if you didn't learn 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, if someone hears it, they'll understand what it means. And so that's how you can figure out the rhythms in your favorite tune, be like, oh, okay, so it's like this. And you can also use it to tell whether it's swinging ahead, swinging behind, because when you swing your eighth notes, they're not perfectly even. And they could be closer to dotted eighth sixteenths. So that's, you take the eighth note and a half, and then a 16th note, but they could be closer to triplets. So you've got the dotted eighth sixteenths, whereas you could have a quarter note triplet followed by an eighth note triplet. So you would normally have 3 eighth note triplets, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, if you just squeeze the first two together, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. So could you hear the difference between the and the? Because I did switch in the middle there. Tempo is the same, rhythm is different, and jazz you can have anywhere between those two. And you could even, as it gets faster, move between that triplet feel to perfectly straight, or at least very close to it. Now, I've covered a lot of things in this episode. A lot of words, a lot of thoughts, but not a whole lot of playing, because you still need to be practicing your scales. You still need to be practicing rhythm changes. You need to get it in your fingers, and you need to get your fingers ready to play. So we did a lot of talking this time with just a little bit of playing to get that little bit into your fingers and into your ears, because I kept playing the same scale over and over again, and it wasn't the major one. Because you'll hear that major scale all over the place. Whereas the minor one, you might not hear quite as often, so it's good to get it in your ears. Maybe next time I'll do Mixolydian. Who knows? But the moral of this story is that tempo is that underlying feeling of a consistent speed at which the tune is going. You're not playing it, but it's always there. Meter is how you divide that up and think about it. So common time, just a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. The meter tells you how to accentuate it, how to divvy it up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Let's go with 7, 8. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 5, 8. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Or heck, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 5, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's meter, that's tempo. Rhythm is then what you actually do with your eighth notes, your quavers, your semi-brevs, and tying them, doubly dotting them, singly dotting them. You can do all sorts of interesting things. If you want to feel rhythm, listen. If you want to know what it's really doing, then you learn the names, and you take what you hear and go, oh, so this is just straight quarter notes. Maybe we throw some eighth notes in. Maybe we swing it a bit. So from there, you can figure out what it is, and eventually, if you're into it, you can start reading music. I haven't said it yet, but I do wholeheartedly believe that you do not need to read music to be a musician. There are tons of perfectly good musicians out there who can't read a single note of music because they don't need to. You need to read it if you're in a setting where it's necessary. If you're in an orchestra, you're gonna need it. But not a lot of electric bass players and orchestras. And if you learn the piece by rote, if you learn it by the chords, if you learn it by listening to the guitarist, you don't need to be able to read it. If you make it up yourself, especially, you don't need to read it. All these things that I just randomly do, I'm just making that stuff up. You don't need to read or write music to be able to do it. But if you've got something you would like to learn about in these episodes, whether it's psychological, physiologically, or musicologically, please let me know. I should probably make these prompts at the beginning of the episodes instead of the end, but nobody's perfect. That's enough on rhythm, tempo, and meter, and I will see you in the next episode of Let's Learn the Electric Bass with Lyte.